And so I'd like to call the meeting to order. And Trina, would you do a roll call?
Yes, Mayor Hill,
Here?
Commissioner Tankersley,
Here.
Commissioner Gormley,
Here.
Commissioner Christensen is excused, and Commissioner Tate.
Here.
Thank you, Trina. We've got the consent agenda tonight, and we've got 2 items on that. Is there any commissioner that would like to take any item off the consent agenda?
No.
No.
Okay, so I would like to have someone to move to approve the consent agenda. Ed, and who's second?
Second.
Kathy. All those in favor of accepting the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Any opposed? Consent agenda passes unanimously this evening. Next on our agenda this evening is the accounts payable and purchasing report. And then we're down.
With it tonight.
What's that?
I have no issues with it tonight.
Okay.
No question.
Good. Okay. Thank you. We have our consultant and partner report. I don't see Brent on the line.
He should be here, so maybe if we want to move on, I'll try
Yeah.
giving him a call real quick.
Okay, good. No appearances tonight, staff reports, old business. That takes us down to new business. And this evening in new business, we have the extension of the COVID-19 emergency declaration. And so, John, I'll turn that over to you.
So I don't know if the commission saw, but today the governor extended her emergency declaration. Ed's chuckling, he must have saw it.
Oh, yeah. Big time. That's from our lobbyist.
Through June of next year. So what's happened here, we've been very fortunate. We've had employees that have had COVID, but no spread or no issues with employees spreading at Water and Light. So employees have done a great job of keeping, when they are sick, staying home and staying away. So
Right.
That's really good. The other thing is through our efforts, I think this really goes to John Spence. He's done a great job of keeping our receivables down and reasonable. And right now we have no customers off for non-pay.
Wow.
Good.
Fantastic.
So he's done, I mean, if you look at our arrearages are, I mean, they're at or below where they were prior to the pandemic.
Mhm.
I think John's done a great job
Fantastic.
working with our customers, making arrangements. And our customers have, really actually done, I think, very well. So I think that's been great too. And so he's done great on that, keeping that up. And so I was really pleased when he told me that we did not have any customers off. So, and he's trying to work on making sure that we don't turn anybody off through the holidays too. So.
Well,
So
and
that's
I think
really
our
good.
helping hands has been helpful. It's shown that we've upped that up a bit, and we're utilizing that and helping people. We're trying to be reasonable.
Yeah. So I think that's also been very productive too. And you can see through the pandemic, with the credit cards and all of that, we've waived over $700,000 in fees
Yeah.
for our customers. So I thought that was also noteworthy. And then also the credit cards, our credit card fees are substantially under what we estimated. We estimated when we went to credit cards in March at $1.30, and we're running at $1 and a penny.
Right.
So we've done really well there too. So I think the question for the commission is, or the recommendation is does the commission want to extend our current emergency to coincide with the governor's?
Go ahead, Ed.
Did I ever mention that in past by any chance? John, I'm with you. If you want us to do that, I'd happily move that. I support that idea.
John, I think we should do it and continue to do what you're doing. So if something horrendous happens, we have the declaration in place and we can do something about it. Now, are we still waiving fees for people on hookups and such? I mean, on shutoffs?
Yes, we're still waiving those fees. So one of the questions we're working on is, at some point, we're thinking of ending that, but we would do it in a way that would, we would give at least 30 days notice if we were going to end those. So people have an opportunity.
So I think we should extend it so we can continue this, but I'd like to hear from staff about how you would like to kind of glide out of that if people aren't experiencing problems from it.
So what we were thinking is it would be a very slow glide path. We would end up stopping the waiving of the late charge and the delinquent charge, but we would continue to work with customers for the next 12 months as far as making arrangements.
Right.
And so, you know, at some point we've been waiving, it'll be 2 years in March.
Mhm.
So the concern we have is people getting used to this, and
Right.
but we want to do it on a very slow trajectory. So it's absorbed over a longer period of time.
And people who really need to have that benefit can rearrange things slowly to get it done. Yeah.
Yeah. And that still allows us, if we do have that customer, it still gives us the ability to waive those fees if we need to in special cases.
Okay. Does Kathy have any input before I make a motion?
No, I'm very supportive of that.
And we have a resolution document that I can fill the blanks in with.
Right.
Yes. So I move that we adopt the resolution, filling the blanks in to coincide with the governor's declaration, extending it, I believe happened today.
And this is going to be resolution number 2021-37, a resolution by the City of Menville Municipal Corporation, State of Oregon, acting by and through its Water and Light Commission, declaring and extending the further winding down of the state of emergency with regard to operation of the water and light plants of the City of Menville. This relates to Governor Brown's Executive Order 21-36, which extends Executive Order 20-03 until June 30th of 2022, and extends the resolution to June 30th also of 2022.
Okay, any further questions around? And Sam, did you say that was 2021-36?
The governor's new executive order is 21-36. That's correct.
Okay. Do we do a polling on this?
Yeah, yes,
Trina?
yes, we will.
Okay, so if there's no further discussion, let's go ahead and poll the commission.
Yeah, we just need a motion in a second.
I moved.
I'll move and I second.
And Ed seconded.
Got it. Okay, Mayor Hill,
Yes.
Commissioner Takersley,
Yes.
Commissioner Gormley,
Yes.
Commissioner Tate.
Yes.
Resolution 2021-36 passes unanimously. Thank you. I see that Brent is on the line, so welcome, Brent. We'll go back up to our reports and receive your report.
Brent, you're muted.
How's that?
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know, Trina, can you share my annual report? We run through it that way, or I have a copy. Not sure how you want to.
Sure,
all
I
have
will share my
copies,
screen
too.
now and follow along.
Okay.
Okay.
And I guess I could just briefly run through the letter as well. But our 2020 and 2021 sales are entirely complete. We're looking forward to reforestation in January, February, and we're finishing up our regeneration surveys right now. Looks like we'll have an average amount of interplanting as part of the complete reforestation of the clear cut units. And so that's kind of where we're at right now with the program. And so I'll jump right into the 2021 program review, 2022 program proposal for the Menville watershed forest management. So starting off with a review of 2021 activities, you can see reforestation. We planted almost 80,000 trees. Some of those were first plantings, some of them were interplants. We like to stay on top of our plantations, of course, make sure they're fully stocked and we get them free to grow and off and running as soon as possible. Had a real good timber sale program this year, about $3.3 million and a little over 4 million feet cut off of 2 smaller units. Silviculture mostly was slashing this year, some pre-commercial thinning. Slashing is just hand removal of the competing brush in plantations. And then some road maintenance. One significant road maintenance item was the placement of large culvert there on the 101 road where Steep Creek crosses the road. And that's something that's needed to be done for years, but generally we need that as a haul route. And this year, trucks were going either direction away from that crossing. So we're able to do that, which also has to be timed during the stream work period. So we got that done and that was quite an accomplishment. Inventory, continue to ongoing timber cruising of a portion of watershed stands that keeps our inventory updated. We use for planning and analysis. As we've done for now decades, continued our protocol spotted owl hooting to comply with the ESA and didn't detect any owls at all this year of any species. Extra projects, as has become more and more the case, worked on quite a few BLM items revolving around road use and timber sales. A warehouser that is a neighboring forest land owner has ongoing logging operations, and so work with them on some road use arrangements and tail holds, things like that, and then worked with Mark on the annual Moss Adams audit, providing some timber sale financial information there. So quick look at the current log market and the watershed inventory. You can see there, that's an updated graph showing our average stumpage prices for the last 20 years. We do real good in our program versus the state or federal agencies, mostly due to our ability to be more flexible than they are. We also have much lower administrative costs and so captured a lot of value over the years. You can see our average price for the last 20 years, a little under $600 stumpage price. Current log markets are now actually even higher than when I wrote this report here a few weeks ago. And they're higher than they were this time last year for small and large logs. There's been a lot of volatility this year with record lumber prices and plywood prices, and then they came way down within a week's time at one point towards the end of the summer. Then they've come up and then they've continued to skyrocket these last three weeks. And so we're looking at a real good timing for our sales coming out next month. And in addition to the fact we usually get a price spike anyway in the winter as inventories get tighter. And so we're in real good position again. Our average sale price in 2021 was $827 for the 2 sales, which is a near record price. So I would anticipate conservatively speaking that we'd get $600 to $700 for our upcoming sales. Poles have just not been viable for several years. They're a high price log, But for what we get, so they're $1,200 delivered price, but if we're getting, you know, over $800 for stumpage, then the way we wanted to do poles before, we want a premium above what we get for stumpage to cover for risk and so on. It just hasn't been viable as the pole bidders haven't wanted to provide those prices. So part of this is coming because of the compressed market. There's less pole buyers now than there were 10 years ago. And so we'll continue to look at that. I would keep that. I think we should keep that reserved for a depressed market like we had in 2009, where poles are much less sensitive to normal market conditions and can provide some value for us when we're not getting normal high price stumpage. So recommendations, as has been the case for years and years, we need to keep working in our older type that's declining in health and is a very large log, and we've captured a lot of value from some key bidders in recent times, but there aren't a lot of markets for that, and so we need to continue to capture that value while those mills are operational. That being said, we're not in a liquidation mode. We're trying to work on those stands steadily, and one limitation is we don't like to create large openings in the watershed. So we have what I refer to as enhanced green up policy, where we don't, the practice rules might provide for us to create large openings and cut adjacent units freely, but we don't like to open up new areas until a recently harvested area is grown for maybe 10, 15 years versus the 3 or 4 years that you could do it with the normal rules. So that's a case where some of those larger, older stands are going to sit a little longer as we work them into the context of the values of the watershed. So for this year, I recommend conducting 2 40 to 60 acre final harvests. These will be in older age classes and will feature some larger logs. And I'll talk about that in couple more slides, where we're going to be working around the power lines. Yeah, we anticipate these final harvests, older stands, again, conservative estimates. We're going to get out and cruise these areas in the next few weeks. We're estimating now about $2.3 million in income from a harvest of about 3.5 million feet. And again, we'll have one sale that's a 2-year contract, which gives buyers a little more flexibility and is more appealing to bid on. And again, poles, you look at $779 average stumpage prices for the 2021 sales, and that's stumpage. So that's over $1,000 delivered log right there. Poles are $1,200, and we want that $100 premium, and just doesn't look like that'll be viable, but we'll reserve that for times when there's more of a decline in the domestic market.
So
I can ask a question of Brent.
Yeah, go ahead.
Brent, John and I had a conversation a few days ago that he had received kind of a mutual aid letter from utilities, or it might have been a posting on some sort of a mutual aid site about poles being needed in Kentucky, that the tornado area. And that, John, do you want to comment about that?
Yeah, that was APPA, American Public Power Association. They actually sent out a, I guess they call it a listserv for a utility. Actually, I think it was the one that was hit for H1 poles, 75s and 85, class H1, 75 and 85 foot poles. So what I would be curious is with the natural disasters or that or any others, has the pole market gone up at all?
Yes, it's up, a couple $100 from maybe a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think I've also heard in New Mexico, they're doing a massive reconstruction and upgrade to their power grid there. And so I know talking to McFarland, they're really hungry for poles. We just haven't seen anyone come in with the level of hunger that we're requiring. We're getting such high prices for our stumpage. Now they are, some of our stumpage buyers have done some pre-polling as part of their, so that's reflected in some of these higher bids we're getting, where they're selling some poles ahead of cutting for their own sawmills. But
So in the timber that we're going to be working in, do you see that there's the potential for that?
well, there's pole material in there. There's all these older stands for sure. And so the other thing is I've been surprised that, because I know like the 720 sale a few years ago is loaded with poles, and I know that's why Herbert bid so high on that one, because they figured the pole buyers they'd be bidding against them, and that they didn't show up for it. So yeah, it's a really aggressive competitive market right now, the poles.
So do you think our stumpage prices are reflective of people surveying and seeing pole stock within our inventory then?
Right.
That's fine. So Brent, two questions, or actually three. One of them is on the pole issue. If the pole demand heats up dramatically after we have these sales, you have some other areas where you could say we'll do a pole sale in the summer or something, right?
Oh, sure. Yep.
Okay, great. And second, on the 2-year sale, as I understand it, at least one of these two sales, and maybe both of them, are designed to not only harvest timber, but also to create a bigger buffer for fire protection on the BPA lines. It is either, are both of them involved in that, or just one of them?
Yeah, both of them are along the power lines, and by the time we're done with that, that'll eliminate 90% of or more of the trees that could potentially contact the power line.
So how much would it hurt to not have the 2-year delayed sale so we can get those poles out of here? We didn't get them out last year because we were going to wait for the sale and we thought it was reasonable. And now if we're intentionally letting them perhaps hold over for another fire season, I wonder if we could, for this time only. I like your 2-year sale thing, and I know a lot of times they've cut them the first year anyway, but I would feel better from a fire protection basis, and you could explain to buyers if you talk to them that this is a one-time only thing, but we want to get those out of there.
I don't think that would hurt us at all. I think especially in this market right now, there's not a lot of.
Okay, then subject to what the rest of the commissioners think, I would suggest strongly that we have only a 1-year sale for this year, but you can tell buyers we're going to go back. This was an unusual situation for us.
Sure. Okay. Well, that sounds good. We'll plan on both sales being a 1 year.
Is that okay with everybody else?
It's fine with me, Tom. No
Yeah,
problem.
it seems appropriate.
Great. Okay. And finally, Brent, I've read in the paper that there may be some change in the Forest Practices Act. There was a big negotiation on that, and that now they're trying to get it codified. If that gets finalized, can you have a little session for us, or if nobody else is interested, for me, to see what the new rules are? But I think we all ought to know that and kind of think about what the changes have been, and whether that indicates that they're just catching up with us, or there's some more things we should do too.
Sure, and I'll do an analysis of how that affects our
And
flexibility, especially around streams.
Okay. And somebody was telling me, who's in the industry, I think, that there were some rules about, there's some rules that were encouraging the industrial forestry companies anyway to grant conservation easements. I want to make sure that would see whether that would apply to us, and if it does, you know, how that implicates what we're going to do in the future.
Okay.
And I may have just misunderstood what the person was talking about too, because the person wasn't real certain about what they had heard.
Okay, yeah, I'll look into that. I'm not sure that would apply to
Okay, great. Thank you.
what's essentially public timber here. Or,
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
okay.
Great.
All right.
Thanks, Brent. So now you can continue with your presentation, Ed. I've been you for a while here. Thank you.
No, that's great. Just jump right in here anytime. I'm just going to kind of roll through it. So next slide here. So this is this future outlook is what I've been talking about, working in these older stands that are declining in health in general. Now we're moving to this power line situation this year, and but that's the general trend where we want to head. And the poles, we will continue to evaluate that. But
Great.
I think there's so much material out there, and they will pay for it. But we were requiring, if you remember, and it worked out really well, especially with Stella Jones coming into this region and wanting to, as they've accomplished, take over the market. And so they came in with a big splash right when we were moving to selling poles as stumpage. We were requiring that all poles be taken as poles because we had such a good logger. We had a lot of stipulations that they went for a few years until they purchased most of the other pole outfits, and then gave us non-responsive bids, I think, the last few times. And so anyway, I think we should reserve the full-blown pole program for a lower saw log market.
Great, or a much higher pole market, right? Relatively
Right.
speaking. Yeah.
Right. We look at the historical harvest summary and little the watershed inventory here. You can see our annual harvest volume. It's averaged a little over 4 million feet a year. Our average annual growth, we figure at between 4.5 and 5 million feet. And a lot of this volume fluctuation can depend on the type of stands we're in. So we can have a lot of volume off of not a lot of acres some years, and then like in 2020, we cut about the same acres we cut in 2017, but just lower volume stands because, as I said, we're moving around the watershed, and there can be variability in the volume. And as we move from a maybe 150-year-old stand to an 80-year-old, it's less volume, and we're not really revenue driven either, so that can fluctuate as well as we just try to maintain sustainability and produce good water, those being the greater priorities. And then you can see the large amount of acres we have in the 66 plus, each category over 1,500 acres in that category. So even though we're working through, we are down to the last few hundred acres of the much older type. We'll always maintain a large inventory of relatively older timber. So then looking a little more detail on the 2022 proposed forest management activities. And here you're familiar with this graph that shows the individual, or these tables that show the individual alternatives and then the cumulative volume and income. And I would just point out, because sometimes it's a little confusing when I have the salvage line there, that I like to show if we just did salvage, there was no timber market, and we just wanted to cover some costs and do some forest health type treatments, or just do the salvage only. That's how it would look by itself. But if once we're doing other sales, then it becomes just part of the sales. We capture the salvage as part of the large wood final harvest. So you can see salvage only about 100,000 feet. If we cut all the volume, 2 sales plus a little salvage, about 3.6 million feet and $2.3 million total income. So both of these sales are along the power lines, and we'll plan on doing them both this year. One's about 60 acres, one's about 40. These volume numbers here are just estimates for right now, but I'm estimating 3.5 million feet, about $2.3 million. And that's about the most acreage we would want to cut in a year, ideally. If you figure trying to use an area control as a real safeguard for sustainability, so we're not cutting more than between 1/60th and 1/70th of the watershed every year, so we have that longer rotation age. And there's little look at the salvage there. It would be just something we would do if there was no log market, just to improve forest health and vigor through the removal of some of the dead and dying trees. We don't get all of them, but we try to capture some of that. And so we're going to throw out the longer time frame sale this year, so I won't go into that. But in general, it does create a lot of flexibility for folks, and we still get our money, and that's worked out well. And then we've talked as well about the pole prices needing to be higher, or the stumpage market needing to be lower for a pole sale.
Well, Brent, I think is a good stopping point here for a second. I am very pleased that the way the program you presented is consistent with what the commission has developed with you and Bill Davison in the past, that you're thinking about water quality, you're thinking about sustainability, you're thinking about smaller clear cuts, which go back to water quality and other reasons too. And I'm very pleased, so thank you.
You bet. Yeah, we definitely try to focus on the other values than net present value, like an industrial forest would, that's for sure.
Great.
Well, and Brent, from my perspective, this annual report really summarizes for us where we've been, why we're doing what we're doing, and what we need to be looking for in the future. So as Tom indicates, we're thankful to have you on board and that partnership and relationship that we have with you.
Well, I appreciate it, and we appreciate the commitment from the commission and the city to this program in terms of, particularly, you look at our reforestation budget and our plantations out there, and some of them are tough to get going, and there can be a lot of upfront cost to have these beautiful plantations at age 20, but that's a real commitment to the program, and gives us a lot of options and makes it much easier to get things the way we want them to look. So here's a map kind of illustrating where those two stumpage sales are along the power line in the northern part of the watershed. The other thing that'll be nice about this is we're so often along or near Haskins or near Idlewild, or it's a watershed. So there's lots of water issues that are challenges to work around, and this will get us in the upper part of the watershed and away from a lot of those major streams. The next slide shows the aerial photography of the spots there, and at the same time you can kind of see how we move around the watershed there with smaller openings. So for example, if you look right above where it says Haskins Creek there in blue in the middle of the map, so there's a big stand. That's a beautiful large wood boulder stand of timber there that's on 3 sides, and it's about to have the power line stuff cut as well. So on 4 sides of it, it'll have small openings. Well, that'll now have to sit there using our rules or enhanced green up rules for at least 10 years. So all those plantations are 15 to 20 feet tall. So
Right.
that's the type of challenge we have. So even if that fit, like it's declining some and it's older and it's bigger, we'll back out of there for a long time. So that's where we'll have a little irregularity in the ages we're cutting. We might be in a much older stand or set of stands, and then have to go to something 60 years old, while the larger areas are greening up and so on.
So Brent, a question on that.
Yeah.
Would that be an area, since we do have to wait a while, would that be an area of potential, maybe some type of pole harvesting in there, thinning with poles?
Yeah, those are the types of areas we'd go into. The
Okay.
one thing to keep in mind is we pretty well, with that real robust and consistent pole program we had for, I don't know, better part of 10 years, we essentially covered at least an initial pre-polling of most of the stands. Now we never took every poll, and our prescription was set up so we left all the stands in good shape for stumpage sales and so on. So there's still lots of polls in the watershed, but some areas I think that'd be one that would work to go back through again. You could take another batch of polls out of a lot of these older stands. Okay, next slide. Now we'll look at our budget review from the last 5 years, and then our budget for 2022. So this is a new graph for this year, showing the harvest revenue for the last 20 years. And so there's a few factors to consider here where you could have, like 2020, I think we cut 81 acres. 2021, we cut 86. But the type of timber we had that really high price on that really nice timber on the 750 road this year, and last year's sales were 60 to 80 years old, much lower volume per acre. Again, we're not driven by revenue. Yeah, we're trying to maintain only cut to a certain size of opening. So that's how we can have some fluctuations there. 2018 was a high market. 2009, you can see that was where we only did poles and salvage. That was a recession year. And then this shows that for the last 10 years, our management costs versus timber sale income are a little less than 10% of the total there. So,
and Brent, that includes reforestation as well?
so that includes all management costs.
Great, thank you.
That's not just core costs. And then the income would have, like back when we were doing polls, that nets out the pole logging cost.
Okay.
That's stumpage income plus like the pole income after the logging. So
that seems good.
So yeah, we're real pleased to be under 10%, including some road maintenance costs, the reforestation, and so on. And then here you'll see our budget for the last 5 years. It's been virtually the same total budget. The numbers have kind of moved around. Our reforestation costs have been real high the last few years. We've also increased our budget for reforestation the last few years. But seedlings have gone up. The planting costs have gone up. We have had some tough climate conditions in the last 10 years or so. We had a real great summer 2018. It was drier again, 19. I've pointed this out before that we really escaped that heat dome that came through this past summer that you see around town and all over the place in the Coast Range, just literally fried a lot of trees, but it just didn't hit the watershed. So we've had other challenges to deal with in some tougher sites and different units, but we were not affected by that event. So that was fortunate. And then this is a graph of that last table for the last 5 years there. So you can see it's been a real consistent overall budget. You can see our reforestation this year is way up, and part of that is because we were right on the exact budget, but here in the last month, I bought about 30,000 seedlings that we had to pay for. They're open market seedlings we had to pay for up front, versus a lot of our stuff is sown, and so we have it sown, and then we pay a third halfway through that process, and then a third at the end. It's a little more even payments, but this larger reforestation still fits within the overall budget. And then you'll see sale admin this year was a lot lower. While we had that 103 road sale was done so fast we barely had time to administrate it. Took them about 6 weeks and they were done. So, and then this pulls out then with the reforestation and a few of these categories. It boils it down to more or less our core charges. So you can see those are, even though we had that huge reforestation bill this year, but you can see our lower sale admin costs and some of our other costs being down makes our core charges pretty low this year. And this is a graph of that illustrating that. In the next couple pages, just give you a quick rundown of a little more detail within each MVG category, what we're doing in terms of the tasks for each. And then some of the staff that works on these. Myself, and then Nick Augsburger's the forester works for me that does most of the legwork out there, along with myself. And then Barb DeJagger's our log accountant. And then here's our 2022 proposed budget. It's the same exact figure, I believe, as last year in total, but the reforestation, I've bumped it up even more. You can see the breakdown of reforestation there, seedlings. I mean, now used to be, I figured $1 a tree, including administration. Now it's almost $1 a seedling, just for the seedlings and the planting of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, you hear a lot about seedling shortages, and we're just not seeing that. After the fires, I think there was a lot of concern, but the Forest Service and those federal lands, they're still figuring out what they're going to do there. So that's thousands of acres that they're not jumping on the reforestation and taking up any of the seedling market. And then most folks just increase the capacity at their nurseries, and so we've had no trouble procuring the seedlings we need. This is similar to what you've seen previous years, and that's of course with the full program of both sales. And you can see the graphical breakdown there of the budget. With the reforestation broken out there, you can see planting seedlings and the quality control. And then a fair amount of that quality control is spent when we do our regeneration surveys in the fall as well. So, and then this is just another final slide of what I showed earlier with the program breakdown.
Yeah.
So any questions?
Any questions from commission for Brent? Go ahead, Ed.
Brent, what is your recommendation to us tonight then?
I'd recommend the full program. I think we're headed into
Okay.
it. We're in the middle of a great market, and that's my recommendation.
Okay, that sounds good.
Any other questions for Brent?
The question would be to staff. John, what's the action you're wanting from us tonight?
I might just jump in there, Commissioner. I think from what Mr. Keller's proposing, I think he's proposing an adoption of the full program alternative number 3 for forest management, the associated Mason, Bruce, and Gerard annual budget of $304,000 for the full program. And with that direction to General Counsel to prepare the annual Mason, Bruce, and Gerard 2022 contract and authorize the mayor and the clerk to sign.
And Sam, aren't we also going to vote to authorize the actions to be taken necessary to do the third alternative, which was the 3 sales? The advertising?
Yeah, I believe that's alternative number 3.
Yes.
Forest
Yes.
management. That's correct.
Well, but but it's also the action of advertising and publishing and all that on those sales.
Okay. And yes, and so that would include yes, actions to advertise those sales for alternative number 3, and we of course will be doing that and bringing those back to the commission for your consideration. I think that's generally in February.
Yes. So moved.
What action do we need to take tonight in support of this?
I move that we do what Sam just told us,
Okay.
which was to approve the budget and to approve and authorize them moving forward with the 3 sales, the third alternative.
Eddie?
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 And so staff now knows the direction we need to go.
Thank you, Brent. Very
Yeah,
good.
Thank you. Thank you. The sales will go out for bid middle of January, and we'll open bids on the Wednesday before the February commission meeting. That's the schedule there. So
Okay.
we look forward to another great year, and what these sales do is provide, among other things, that from my perspective, provide the resources to maintain the watershed to a super high standard in terms of the infrastructure and fire protection and water quality and so on. So anyway, we look forward to executing the program again.
Great. Thank you, Brent.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Brent. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Yep. Okay, that takes us back to new business, and we have the general manager's evaluation. And do we need to go into executive session, Sam, to review that, or?
Yes, and I think what we're going to do, I want to jump back to the agenda, but I believe we're going to drop into executive session for at least 3 of those items, announce those, and then we'll jump back out of executive session to take action.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if Trina, if you're going to announce those to take us in.
Sure. I'll go ahead and just read all of them. But like Mr. Justice said, we'll probably come out after 3 of them. But we'll be going into executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602F to consider information and records that are exempt from public disclosure under ORS 192.355 sub 2.3 relating to identifying security measures, individual building, and information processing. Also, executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602I for review and evaluation of the general manager. Also, executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602E to conduct deliberations with persons designated to negotiate real property transactions. and also executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602D to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations.
Okay. We will then go